If you're into true scary stories and true crime, make sure to subscribe to the channel for new videos every week.
Tonight, police are investigating a string of frightening clown sightings that have residents on edge. Videos like this one, recorded in a downtown alley, show a figure in full costume lingering under a streetlight before vanishing into the shadows.
This story takes place around mid-2016, right in the heat of the whole clown sightings. A lot of people have stories from this time, and this is mine. In the fall, my cousin and I were both in middle school, me in 8th and him in 7th, and I was staying at his house one night during fall break. There were quite a few people in the house that night. Me, my cousin, his 10-year-old brother, his 3-year-old sister, 3-month-old baby brother, his dad, and his stepmom. Let me try to explain the layout of the house and yard. They lived in a rather large double-wide trailer and had it out on a flattened part of the hill. Their driveway is a rather steep gravel slope that connected to the road at the bottom of the hill. Behind the house up the hill was nothing but woods. With the layout set up, let me continue the story. As I said, my cousin and I were the only ones still awake. We were watching TV, probably some old sitcom on Nick at Night or something. We kept hearing noises in the woods behind the house. We didn't pay too much attention to it, since it was kind of windy. We had heard a lot of stories and watched YouTube videos about the whole killer clown thing, and to be honest, I didn't think it was real. I thought it was nothing but pranks. Something made up to get clickbait views. We continued sitting on the couch, the only light being the TV and the dim light above the kitchen sink. Suddenly the back motion detector light came on. We did notice but didn't think anything of it. The lights were set on 10-minute timers, so if it detected one movement, it would turn off after 10 minutes if no other movement was detected. 10 minutes later, the light turned off, so we figured it was just an animal, which wasn't uncommon. After about 20 minutes, I went to the bathroom down the hall. I did my business and washed my hands. When I came back out, the motion light on the side of the house came on and shone through the thin blinds that were on the door. I swore I heard what sounded like footsteps on the gravel outside. Then the doorknob started rattling quickly, like someone was trying to open it. I ran into the living room and got back in my spot on the couch. Luckily, the blinds were shut, so whatever it was didn't see me. I knew my cousin heard the same thing I did, because he was already up and halfway into his dad's room to wake him up. At that point, I saw the light from the front porch come on, so I got up to look out the window. By this point, my uncle had his pistol and flashlight, and I was out on the front porch looking for who or whatever it was, when he saw it. There, at the bottom of the hill, in the ditch by the road, was a clown. It was a crappy costume, one probably from Walmart or Spirit Halloween. My uncle fired a warning shot, and the clown ran across the road and into the woods. My cousin and I didn't sleep any more that night. My uncle stayed on the porch for a few more hours to make sure no one came back. I remember him telling us not long after the shot that he heard what sounded like an ATV starting up and driving away. Troublesome kids were always and still are an issue in that area. There are houses somewhat close to each other, but far enough that you couldn't see them. The only house we really could see was our grandparents'. I don't doubt it was just a high school kid playing a prank, just trying to scare who was ever in the home. Years later, after reading some more experiences of people's lives actually being threatened by the clowns, it still scares me to think about what would have happened if he made it into the house. I'm a 46-year-old woman with many years of happiness and sorrow that I'll love to remember. Like many, I've forgotten many years of my life due to stress, anxiety, or maybe just old age. Sometimes I'm reminded of something that happened in my life because of a hint here or there, and I write it down in a diary so I can piece it all together. I know it may sound silly to some, but the memories are just as vacant as a bad hotel room on a lonely highway. What stays fresh in my mind is what happened when I was 10 years old. I'll never forget it. I was just turning 10 and having a birthday in the middle of summer. It was always the best time to have a birthday because we'd have water gun fights while we waited for presents and cake. But this year was different. My mom had ordered a clown to do tricks for us as a special treat. She thought it might be fun for me, since Killer Clowns from Outer Space is my favorite movie. Pops was the name of the clown she hired. He had a red shirt with blue balls on the front, and red and white pants that were poofy all the way down. He sported blue and red shoes that honestly looked more like bowling shoes than clown shoes. His hair wasn't the typical orange and red curly clown hair. It was long and stringy, and he was bald on top. Pops never smiled when he did tricks. He would just stare at us while juggling the balls or pins. He looked at each kid for a moment before doing a new trick, and then would point at one of us to come up. None of us wanted to be near him, so we didn't budge. Some of us held hands to hold each other back. He would just shrug and continue the trick. It wasn't until the very end of the show when he spoke. He then pointed at Jenny, my babysitter. Jenny lived next door to us. She often came by to babysit me to earn extra money while she went to college. I think she was 18 or 19 at the time, and still living at home with her parents. All of the girls in the neighborhood wanted to be like Jenny, with their long blonde hair and blue eyes. All of the guys wanted to date her. "You're a tough crowd," Pops grunted. He then packed up his dark blue van with the word Pops on the side and left. The rest of the day was fun. We had cake and ice cream, and then I opened my presents. It wasn't until around 5 p.m. when everyone started to go home. My neighbor Jenny was the last to leave. Mom offered to walk her home, but she insisted that her parents were going to be waiting out front for her. It wasn't until about 7 that night that we found out that was a lie. "Is Jenny still at your house?" The girl's mom blurted into the phone when my mom answered. I could hear every word, and she was crying so loudly. "No, she went home about 2 hours ago and said both of you guys were waiting for her." "She isn't there, can you check?" "She's supposed to go shopping with me when she got home, but instead I found a note on the front door that said, 'Hey Mom, I won't be coming home.'" "Did you call the police?" Mom said. "Yeah, they said they'd be here as soon as possible, but I want to look." "Okay, come right over," Mom said as she hung up the phone. Mom and I looked around the house and didn't see her. Her parents came right over and we all checked the garage, cars, and shed. We even went back to Jenny's house and helped them look everywhere, but she wasn't there. A few miles up the road the following morning, a woman went to take her dog for a walk. He started acting crazy, jumping and barking, dragging her to a nearby brush. When she saw the white hand sticking up out of the grass, she called the police. They arrived to a horrific scene. It was Jenny. Her mouth was open in a terrorized state, but worst of all, her eyes were missing. Detectives concluded that she had been tortured for hours while being tied up. Her cause of death was a cranial bleed from being hit by a blunt force object. When the police took the report, my mother and I mentioned the weird clown who was at the party. The police checked into the clown, but something was wrong. The man whose name was listed under the clown's business was a fake name. The alias he had been using to get hired at these parties was someone who had been dead for 50 years. Chorophobia is a fear of clowns, and I'm pretty sure most of us at some point have experienced it. For most, it disappears after childhood, but for some it lingers longer. I had the misfortune of being one of these people. At the age of 17, I was still as scared of clowns as I was when I went to a circus at age 5. So imagine, if you will, my absolute horror when I found out a clown was going to be at my little cousin's birthday party. I almost refused to go, but my parents said it was time for me to get over my fears, and my little cousin really wanted me to come. I eventually forced myself to go, deciding the clown would be too busy entertaining the little kids to bother me. After all, that's what clowns do. They entertain kids. So the time came and me and my folks headed over. It was mostly relatives and a few of my little cousin's friends who were there. They had rented out a bouncy castle. Then I saw the clown, already busy entertaining the kids. But even at a distance, I began to freak out a little. I really wanted to go home. But I pushed myself forward, making sure to look away from the clown and let him drift into the crowds, as I made my way over to one of the tables filled with food. The usual selection of party food awaited me, and I began to help myself, when suddenly became aware of someone standing behind me. Thinking it was someone I knew, I turned around, only to feel a wave of fear rush through my entire body, as that damn clown stood right in front of me. The clown just stared at me with a large grin on his painted face, extending a hand towards me as I began to shiver. One gloved finger came closer and closer, until finally resting on my nose. And then he said, I absolutely lost it at that point, shoving the clown out of the way as I ran straight into the nearby house, and I totally ignored the looks in surprise of my parents calling me back. I didn't even look back to see if that clown was following me. I just kept running. I slammed the door shut and took a deep breath, as I tried to calm myself, still shaking uncontrollably. I knew my parents were going to give me a verbal beatdown for acting up like this, but the clown really got to me. What was his problem anyway? It was then that I heard the door open, and expected my parents to come rushing in. Instead, I was once again staring in utter disbelief as that clown entered the house. Get away from me! I yelled out, finally having enough. My fear slowly turning into anger at the stupid clown. Couldn't he see I was scared? The clown's grin faded at this, and before I could react, he threw himself at me, tackling me to the floor.
You scared of clowns? I'll give you something to be really scared about, you little shit.
I struggled as this crazy clown pinned me down and began to wrap his gloved hands around my neck and choke the life out of me. I could feel myself getting weaker as the clown's grip tightened, his face nothing short of pure murderous rage. Just when I felt like I was about to die, I watched as the clown was tackled by my uncle, my parents coming in soon after. Everyone was shouting and screaming, but it was a blur to me. As I began coughing, I heard someone yell out to the kids and another person to call the cops, as more people helped my uncle to hold the crazy clown down, who was struggling all the while yelling obscenities. I don't really remember much else about that day. All I remember is a few days after the incident, a local paper got a hold of the story. Turns out the clown at the party had arrest warrants and had managed to evade the police for several months. It seemed he enjoyed dressing as a clown and passing off as an entertainer, and he had attacked several people before, yet always managed to escape. As for me, well, let's just say it'll take a few more years to get over my fear of clowns.